Alright, thank you for checking out this video. Apologies for the dog chewing sounds in the background, if you can hear those. I just gave my dog a treat. Right, this one is going to be about Marui pistols. I now pretty much only exclusively use Tokyo Marui pistols in skirmishes. I do have other pistols, and I'll get into those as well in a bit. But I basically only use and play with and recommend people to get Marui pistols. And I just kind of, for a while, I wanted to make a little video about why. And my experience and why I think it's better to run Marui plastic slided pistols versus anything else. So when I was like getting back into airsoft at first, I was using electric guns, and we all know, just like this MP7, this isn't one of the first ones I had, but we all know that electric guns use mid-cap magazines or high-cap magazines with loads and loads and loads and loads of bullets. So you actually rely on your sidearm when you're using electric guns a lot less, right? How often, unless you're going into a really tight space and your rifle's quite long, you're not really going to go down to your sidearm over using your reliable rifle, right? So it doesn't really matter how gas efficient and reliability of feeding and, you know, those kind of qualities in your pistol don't really matter. Yes, the accuracy matters to a certain extent, but you know, if you're only going to draw your pistol when you go into a tight space, accuracy doesn't really matter. With gas rifles.
Now pull out your sidearm. Remember, switching to your pistol is always faster than reloading.
It's 100% quicker to switch to your sidearm than it is to reload. But with AEGs, there's nothing to do. You just take one out and put a new one in, and that's it. So depending on how well your rig is holding all your equipment and stuff, that's probably quicker than drawing the pistol. So yeah, when I used to use electric guns all the time, I'd buy myself nice metal pistols, you know, that were a bit more weighted and a bit more realistic feeling and stuff, and you know, had that durability, if you like. And I say that with air quotes because the metal that these cheaper ones are made out of is it's nowhere near as durable as like a real gun, and in a lot of cases it's not as durable as like Marui's. The Marui's plastic pistols are just as durable. And yeah, so I'd buy myself nice full metal guns with all of, you know, the correct markings, and where possible or where necessary I'd pay to have the markings put on. So I got, this is a WE Beretta, and that goes full auto for some reason. And I had these markings engraved on it, and it's very nice. And I put some nice real Beretta grips on it, and had to sand them away a little bit to get them to fit properly. And you know, it's nice. It's very, very nice. A very nice pistol. I've never skirmished this one. It is very nice. It's not really ideal for something that you want to rely on. No matter how warm it is outside, the gas inside this, as it cycles, will cool it down, and it will get less efficient. It will struggle to rack that heavier metal slide, and because it's all made of metal, those effects will last longer. It will then take longer to warm back up. And that's something I think is important to note if you're using a more realistic primary platform and are gonna rely on your pistol a lot more. Now, I also pretty much just exclusively run gas blowback rifles, all year round where I can. I've got the MP7 that you saw a second ago, purely as a winter backup for if I have a gas gun problem due to the cold weather and I'm playing in winter. Most of the time in the winter I tend to play indoors, so I don't really run into those problems, but it's still nice to have it as a peace of mind that if your gun goes down, you can, just still enjoy playing the game. Now, when you're running a gas blowback rifle, You only have 30 shots. You've got upkeep to worry about, so you need to keep your mags, make sure your mags are gassed with the VFCs. They tend to, the gas lasts a long time. And you know, you've got to make sure you're not, you don't get loads of dirt inside your gun, because, you know, an AEG doesn't really have the same sort of open spaces for dirt and grime and stuff to get into. Same with your mags. You've got to make sure that, you know, you keep dirt and grime and stuff out your mags. And you've got to really sort of take care of the gun as you use it. So, yes, it can run out of ammo quite quickly because you're only using real cap mags. And you have a manual of arms to complete before you know, clear your stoppage or bring a new mag in. And where it doesn't seem that much, under the stress of being in the middle of a skirmish with someone and your gun runs out of ammo or has a stoppage, that feels a lot longer than it is just doing it in these like chill afternoon, sunny, you know, ideal conditions. So it 100% is quicker to switch to my sidearm than it is to reload in a situation like that.
Now switch to your sidearm again. You see how fast that was? Remember, switching to your pistol is always faster than reloading.
And those do occur more often than you think when you're using a gas rifle, just because you run out of ammo more. You can have the most reliable gun in the world, but if you're using 30 round mags, you're going to need to reload more. There's going to be more chances where those reloads are coming at a moment where you are engaging with someone and you need to reload. They don't. They got the drop on you. You need to quickly, you know, reassess your situation and pull something out that's going to be 100% reliable. It's going to go off when you pull the trigger, as long as it's cocked and you've taken the safety off and done all your bits that you need to do. And so, for me, in my experience, Tokyo Marui plastic pistols. So, here are my current ones. I am after, as much as I don't really like Glocks, I am after a Glock. The Gen 5s are just sold out and never coming back, the better looks of it. So I'm probably going to grab a Gen 4 in the meantime until the Gen 5s come back. And I'm thinking a 17. If they do a 34 Gen 5, I'd be all over that, but I'm not sure if that's a real thing. If they do like a 45 Gen 5, I'd be all over that. I quite like the length of the 19, but I prefer the grip of the 17. So, yeah. So I want one of those. I have toyed with the idea of getting a Beretta PX4. I've had a WE one and it was cool, but again, it was all metal and it just not as reliable for the reasons I've said. They get cold, no matter how warm it is outside, they do get cold, they'll cool down, and that was actually pretty good. but you know, you don't want it in the back of your mind, oh, is my pistol going to work today? While you're having a skirmish. It's 33 degrees, so everything is on side right now. There you go, add a little double tap there. Still locking back, so that is nice. That is very good. Well done. Well done, WE. I'll give it to WE. Their Berettas are, you know, their Gen 2 Berettas are very, very, very snappy. They're super, super snappy. I think it's because they've been designed to do full auto, so, although, you know, designed to do full auto and capable of doing full auto are two different, very different things. Sorry, I got sidetracked. But you know, that kind of thing you just don't have to worry about with the Marui. They don't cool down as quick. They do have cooldown, but nowhere near as quick because they're made of plastic. And those effects don't last as long because it then warms up quicker. So you are able to draw your pistol and rapid fire to solve the problem comfortably. There's no like worry that the gun's going to stop working before you've like sorted out the problem. And there's no get that back there. There's also no worry that you're going to have to wait a little while before you can use it again, because you know the cooldown and stuff doesn't really have the same effect as it does with a full metal pistol. Also, the slide being plastic is obviously a shit ton lighter than any metal slides. I'd love to show this shoot because it's a beast. So this thing is absolutely just an absolute snapper, and it just rocks. Like the Tokyo Marui USP Compact is something else. It's why I want one of the Glocks as well, because the Gen 4 and the Gen 5 Glock is supposed to be their best recoil system that they've put into a gas blowback pistol yet. I was very, very impressed with that, and I'm curious to see how they've improved on that, because that is so good. It's so reliable. I've got tons of kills in CQB with this. This is like my CQB sidearm. It's nice and small, has this sort of Inforce knockoff light on it, and it gets it done. So yeah, that lightweight plastic slide is incredibly snappy. It cycles so quickly, so the follow-up shots are just so crispy and snappy. The triggers aren't incredible, so the reset, you can hear it but you can't feel it, but it doesn't matter because it cycles so quickly anyway that you can just keep it will go as fast as you can pull the trigger. You're not going to outshoot one of these. Yeah, so you've got this nice snappy plastic slide. Now it's plastic, but it does have, like, especially these newer ones, which I'm pretty sure all of these minus the Beretta are privy to, is having all of this like reinforcement inside it. So slide is plastic. The trademarks on the USB is really nice as well. The slide is plastic, but all inside here, all along the edges, is like metal reinforcement, and that that adds a bit of weight obviously, but not anywhere near as much as the whole thing being made of metal. And it's not like it's on the equivalently priced alternatives, the KWAs and the VFCs and stuff. It's not like it's a CNC'd super lightweight aluminium or like even a steel. Like, it's a chunk of zinc alloy, and it does weigh a fair bit. It absorbs temperature in a way that's just not ideal for rapid movement and transfer of energy. So yeah, it's just having a plastic slide on a pistol. It just works. It just works a lot better. And I think if you're a gas blowback user, or if you run real cap mags, you need a Tokyo Marui over anything else, just simply for the reliability, because you're gonna be going for your pistol a lot more than someone using an AEG. Even the Desert Eagle, right? It's big, chunky Desert Eagle. Super snappy. Super duper snappy. And yeah, just an absolute tank to shoot. This is kind of what I go to outdoors most of the time, just because it's got quite a long inner barrel and it outranges most snipers. And that's the other thing with using a Tokyo Marui. You've got this efficiency, but you also have like accuracy that matches most AEGs. Like, Tokyo Marui have a standard that they like to make their guns adhere to, and that's the same no matter what it is. So it's got to be a certain FPS and be accurate to a certain degree, and it's the same for everything. Doesn't matter how it works, that's what they do. Like, so obviously FPS varies depending on barrel length and blah 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 blah, but they are all very, very accurate. And I've been able to make some shots with the Desert Eagle that I wouldn't really try and attempt. I was doing it for a joke, getting a headshot on someone who was further away than I would comfortably try and attempt with my rifle. So yeah, I know this is a very Tokyo Marui fanboy video, but I think I do make enough content sharing what I don't like about some of their guns as well. And you know, it's good to give a company a fair shake. And I can honestly say with their pistols, I've not had any problems, no reliability problems. I run green gas in them, and I've not had any slides break. The Beretta is the one I've had the longest and probably used the most, and it's so nice. And like the finish, again, the finish on these is great. One thing I have had an issue with the Beretta is the magazine shell cracked, so this no longer holds gas. This magazine I just use as kind of a bit of a, you know, when it's in its box or like on display mag, that I can just kind of fuck it around with it with. It does accept WE mags. I've got a couple of Marui mags as well. I'd quite like to get some more. I've used all the gas in that mag. For like an outdoor skirmish day where your games are sort of 40 minutes to even an hour long, having a gas blowback rifle with 7 or 8 mags and then a pistol with 3 or 4 mags is like adequate. The Beretta being the oldest, one of the other problems I've had with it, I've had to replace these nozzle return springs a couple of times, and I think it's in need of replacing again. And I do tend to keep them spare so that I can do that. I don't know what brand this was that I put in it, but it got a bit mangled. So I'm probably going to have to order, this one's going again as well. Probably going to have to order a couple of nozzle return springs from a Beretta, which is a shame. But it's not the end of the world. They're like a £4 part, which seems a lot for a tiny little spring, but it's the world we're living in. So yeah, I mean, I've had a couple problems with the Beretta from just lots and lots of use. The springs would probably be alright if I used the you know, lower power gas that it's designed for in it instead of this. I didn't put my recoil assembly back in. Yeah, if I was using the gas that it was designed for, I'd probably not have those issues. But if you want to run green gas, you are going to have to prepare, as I've learnt with my MWS as well. You have to prepare for some more frequent maintenance, fixes, issues, problems, and problem solving. So yeah. Shame I couldn't show how snappy this was for the video, but yeah, no, it's been my most used and most reliable. I've not had any problems with sort of the durability of the gun itself. I've had to replace some wear and tear parts a few times because I've used it quite a lot. I'm glad that's happened now, and I've noticed it now as opposed to like at a game. It was a shame I couldn't give you a direct comparison with the WE, but hey ho. What I can do is give you a more direct comparison with a metal slided 1911. This is an army armament. These are very, very nice. The tolerances between the slide and frame are quite nice. There's a tiny bit of wiggle there, but it's just looks, you know, to be fitted really well. And this was a slide and a frame that was separate. So I bought the slide for like 35 quid from Airsoft Tiger HK, and the frame again on a separate occasion. It was going to be for something else. They ended up going together on this, and they work very harmoniously. So okay, maybe I should have refilled that gas. These 1911 mags obviously don't hold an incredible amount of gas, but not the snappiest, but in the Marui, much more snappy. So yeah. So why is it that, you know, rifles and pistols, why is it different? Why aren't I saying, oh no, there should be plastic gas blowback rifles because they would be better? And you know what, they probably would. And like the G36s and the G5s and the UMPs and all like the HK plastic stuff, it does kind of, you know, have less cooldown from what I've seen. Tends to have less cooldown, less, you know, the effects of cooldown don't last as long, and they seem to run better in the winter than other gas blowback rifles, metal ones. But really what it comes down to with rifles is there's a lot more surface area to cool down of the actual gun. You know, like the bolt carrier group, you know, that will get cold. That's a chunk of metal and that's moving back and forwards. That'll get cold and it'll become, you know, less reliable to cycle. But the rest of it is, you know, is quite substantially bigger, has more surface area than, say, the slide of a pistol. And so that takes longer to cool down, and will, you know, warm back up before it fully cools down in, you know, in most cases, unless you're playing in quite extreme cold temperatures. And that and the nozzles on the gas rifles are bigger, they have a bigger volume, and much more, again, much more surface area, so they don't cool down as quickly and recover quicker as a result too. So in a pistol, the nozzle's like a lot smaller than inside a rifle, and that, when it's surrounded by metal, is going to stay cold for longer and cool down in the first place faster. So what it comes down to really, for most people, is feel. They want it to feel more realistic. Now, I've got a bit of experience with real firearms, and I must say, my most realistic airsoft pistol is going to be my CO2 226X5, right? In terms of how it feels when you hold it. But it doesn't feel real. It still feels like a toy. It's pretty good, but you know, it's made out of zinc aluminium alloy. It's not got quite the real weight as it is, or the real feel as it is. Steel just feels different. You can get kits for airsoft that make it feel very realistic. You can get full steel kits for pistols, and you know, you can go the whole hog and make a super realistic pistol. Will it function great? Probably not too great. It may be in ideal conditions where, you know, you've got your Marui with a Ziki or a Nova or a Garda kit on it, and it's super snappy and reliable in the ideal conditions. But then when you're in an actual game conditions and you take it outside and it's, you know, the cooldown happens, it's a different story. Now, for sure, you can do that, but it's very expensive. You're going to buy the pistol, you're going to buy the kit, you're probably going to have to buy some tools or take it to a tech to do properly to get it to actually work. And it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost, you know, upwards of £400 to £500, and whatever that is in dollars, you know, to get that and get it working reliably, or as reliably as a stock Marui. The alternative is you get like a cheaper one. I think, you know, the slide kit was 35 quid. The frame kit was, I say kit, it's just parts, you know, complete sets, part sets, for, you know, 40 quid, and then the shipping was 20 quid. So, you know, with less than 90 quid, you've got a full metal gas blowback pistol, but it doesn't feel realistic. This does not feel like a real 1911. A real 1911 is a big chunk of steel and it feels heavy. This is kind of wobbly. It's made of aluminium. It feels a lot cheaper. Let's put it that way. It feels a lot cheaper than a real steel, you know. This feels pretty close to the Beretta. The Beretta's got the M9A3's got an aluminium frame, plastic grips. So this is a steel trigger. So it does kind of feel quite realistic, this one. But again, the slide on this is aluminium. The real one's steel. This has got an aluminium barrel, the real one's steel. And so it still doesn't feel real. And that's the point I'm trying to make. If it doesn't feel real, why try to make it feel real? What is more realistic, and this is disregarding the factors like an explosion and a bullet projectile coming out the end of the barrel with a back force on it that creates actual recoil, right? Disregard that. The snappiness of this cycling is much more realistic than the snappiness you get out of a metal pistol. That snappiness, that's how quick and deliberate and violent a real pistol is. Yes, it doesn't have the explosion and the actual recoil behind it, but that is how, you know, that's a lot closer to the cyclic rate and violent, you know, just snap of a real pistol than the metal WEs are, you know. So in terms of feeling realistic, that aspect of it does feel more realistic. Now you can go for a pistol that in real life has a polymer frame like the USP, and yes, the Tokyo Marui plastic is not a nylon reinforced polymer like some of the other replicas or the real steel is. You watch the video on my HK Mark 23, I go into a lot of just dribble over how realistic the plastic feels. Same with the plastic on the VFC MP5. Like the Tokyo Marui plastic on this, same with the MP7, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not like creaky, crappy AEG plastic, but it's not, you know, it's not Carlin. So yeah, I mean, but if you go for a plastic framed pistol, polymer framed pistol anyway, that much feels realistic. Then you can add weight to it with, if you want it to feel heavy, you can add weight to it with lights and lasers, and the magazines are pretty heavy. So it does get up there, but what you save in weight, you just make up for in reliability and poppiness. Incredibly snappy, incredibly poppy. Much more reliable when you're drawing it out of your holster in that panicked moment of my rifle's stopped working or run out of bullets, and you can have a much better time with one of these. And I think that's much worth the trade-off compared to having just a metal pistol that, it just, in the back of my mind, whenever I've got a metal pistol in my holster, I'm like, right, it's just not going to be as reliable. Why didn't I bring my Marui? And so that's why I just don't bring them to skirmishes anymore, really. The CO2 pistol is good, but the CO2 bulb lasts a couple of mags. The power will vary quite drastically as it runs out of CO2. And CO2 is colder than propane or green gas. It's just colder. So it actually makes the gun cool down quicker, and then the mechanical parts of the gun are affected by that cooldown. Doesn't matter what the propellant is, the mechanical parts of the gun are affected by cooldown. And yes, you can run black gas in mags and in guns to get, you know, a more PSI out of it for a bit longer, but the effects of cooldown will happen regardless of what the fuel is that you're putting into it. And so doesn't matter if you've got a high PSI at the start, it's going to come down as the gun cools down. It's physics. So yeah, I don't really use the CO2 either. I used to use it for plinking targets at home for some reason, just when I had lots of CO2 spare. But I've got that SIG because it looks like the Time Crisis arcade machine controller. Yeah. Sorry, another sidetrack. Love that. Right. Oh yeah, in terms of feel, you can go for a gun that has polymer parts that you touch anyway, and then it's more like it's, you know, that's how it's supposed to feel. So the HK stuff, the FN stuff, I'm sure there's lots more out there that Marui make that I can't think of off the top of my head. The Glocks, you know. Now the replicas that in real life are metal, so like Berettas and 1911s and Desert Eagles and stuff like that, they feel a bit crap in black for me. Like, This feels a lot more durable, obviously, in the frame area than a plastic one does. And the finish on the Tokyo Marui stainless and chrome guns feels like metal. It feels as durable as metal. The black plastic, just straight up black plastic, even if it's like sort of polished and looks quite metallic, feels a lot more brittle, and overall it feels a lot more plasticky. These are quite forgiving, until you get the weight. Really, when you're looking at it, it looks like metal. When you touch it, if it's cold, it's cold to touch like metal, but it is obviously plastic, but it is, as I said, quite forgiving. So it's quite convincing plastic, and it even sounds a bit more metallic than the black plastic ones. So I kind of go for the chrome, because if I want them to look like metal, look a bit more realistic, feel a bit more realistic, but retain that Marui magic, the snappiness of the plastic slides. And that's kind of my 2 cents, really. It's why I think you should use Tokyo Marui pistols if you're running real cap mags or just gas blowbacks in general. You should be running a sidearm that's 100% reliable and it's going to work straight out your holster. VFC make lots of very, very nice pistols, and as much as I love their rifles, I've seen so many horror stories about their pistols. I'm just not interested. I don't want to spend 200 quid on a paperweight that's not gonna shoot reliably when I really need it to. I'd rather continue collecting some nice Tokyo Maruis, leaving them stock and just, replacing little parts inside as and when I need to, because I'm using higher pressure gas than what they were designed for, and there's going to be a bit more wear and tear when it comes to doing so. So yeah, bit of a long-winded way to say get Tokyo Marui pistols and fuck everything else, but I figured it's something I feel quite strongly about within the hobby, and just wanted to make a video about. If it affects anyone's purchasing choices, win. Get on the Marui train, use Marui pistols. They're not really that much more expensive than good equivalent in sort of quality metal pistols from like KWA and such. And so, there's no reason why you should be put off by them not being as realistic, because in terms of how they feel when they fire, they feel a lot more realistic than the metal clunky cool downy replicas that you can get as alternatives. So yeah, if you're running gas blowback rifles, run Tokyo Marui pistols. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you very much. You're the best. If you like this content, you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button. It does help. Hit the notification bell so you get a little buzz on your phone whenever I'm uploading a new video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.